Hello and welcome to the 10-Star Happy Hour podcast where we talk about all things ticketing, marketing, and logistics. My name is Brennan Robinson, your host, and here with me today is Mr. Corey Hill. How's it going, Corey?
I'm good, Brendan. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for joining us today. Corey, where are you joining us from today?
So I'm actually north of Vancouver in Canada. I live in a little town called Squamish, sort of between the big city and the ski hills. So it's a good little spot for me.
You're probably a pretty good skier, I'd imagine, being from up there, right?
Yeah. We get out fairly often, and we're definitely spoiled with the mountains and the snow that we have.
Yeah, you are spoiled. So you've probably never been skiing in the Smoky Mountains, but there's a place in East Tennessee called Gatlinburg. Have you heard of Gatlinburg?
No, not familiar.
Okay, so it's where we Tennesseans go for like a weekend trip, and
Right.
we'll go to the Smoky Mountains, this little town called Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area. Just a lot of cabins and
Yeah.
mountain people things, and they're skiing there at Ober Gatlinburg, and it is like the worst freaking skiing ever. I mean, it's just like it's all fake snow. It gets super icy, and that was my
Yeah.
first skiing experience. But um,
Right.
I've had some others. We just went to Colorado and got some skiing in last year, and Snowshoe, West Virginia. So that was definitely a better experience. But I'm sure y'all are definitely spoiled up there.
Right on. Yeah. I've never been to the Smoky Mountains, but I'd like to get out there at some point. Probably more in the summer though.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Corey, tell us a little bit about your background, and also just kind of what you do now, and what you do in the event industry.
Totally. Yeah. So, I actually went to school for mechanical engineering of all things.
Oh, really?
Um,
Didn't
yeah,
know that.
really just like the math side and the problem solving side. Also some of that like creativity that comes with design. And then out of school, I got a job working with Anheuser-Busch in their management training program. Traveled around with them, kind of learning all aspects of the business, got exposure to, you know, brewing, logistics, marketing, sales, all these different components that make the business successful. And then did that for a while, and then the beer business started to decline a little bit, and things were kind of heading south. And a friend actually introduced me to digital marketing, digital advertising, and sort of the early days of like Google advertising, Facebook advertising, things like this. And so I started to play around a little bit with that and started like a little side hustle. So I'd work my regular job, like, 40, 50 hours a week, and then had this little side hustle that eventually I was also doing like 30, 40 hours a week, and it got to be too much. So I was like, people aren't buying beer anymore, but this digital advertising thing is showing some promise. Let's give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, I'll get a new job in 4 months. But now it's been almost 6 years, and I'm still doing it. And along the way, I discovered this niche of events and event marketing specifically. I just really like the energy around events, and the fact that you have this deadline that you gotta get everything done by, and see what you can get out of the market in that period of time. And again, kind of going back to my like engineering math background, like I love all the analytics and sales forecasting and things like this that come with events in general, but especially with digital advertising where you just have so much data to look through. And so yeah, we niched into that space. I started to grow a small team, and to this point, we've done promotions for over 500 events. And events is what we do now. We don't do any other kind of digital advertising for any other industries. It's really what we specialize in.
And I really like the story of how your side gig, what you're passionate about maybe, or just something that you've been working on the side becoming a full-time gig, and it's something that you really enjoy, something that you're passionate about. It's very it takes a good work ethic to really get to that point, because like it sounds like you're at one time you're working two full-time jobs for a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a lot and it was not sustainable.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had a decision to make and yeah, I'm happy with the one I made and where it went.
Yeah. Cool. Well, explain what all Altitude social media does, and explain a little bit more why you specifically are so passionate about the event industry, and elaborate a little bit more on, I guess, why it's stuck.
Yeah, so at Altitude, we focus explicitly on digital advertising for events. And just to kind of qualify what that means, everyone's familiar with like posting on Facebook and Instagram and boosting posts and these kinds of things. And while that is, it has its place and it's important, we focus more on using all the tools of Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, TikTok, etc., to build paid advertising campaigns, so targeted at specific people, using a lot of their data and retargeting capabilities, and really focusing on revenue generation and return on investment. So not only do we want to let people know about the event that's coming up, but we want to turn them into ticket buyers and turn them into ticket buyers early, right? Because especially with big outdoor events, weather's always a factor. And so if you can get ticket sales early, you'll get a lot of those people that, maybe if they're looking at the forecast the week of and they're like, oh, might be a little cool, there's a slight chance of rain or something, they might hesitate and you might um, miss out on that. So, and they might miss out on the event too. So um, that's what we really focus on, is driving online advanced ticket sales through these paid advertising channels. And yeah, I mean, events is fun. Events is, like I said, it's good energy. I like the idea of that deadline, right? Like, if you're managing ads for Nike and you're trying to sell sneakers or t-shirts, like you can kind of try something for a few days, and if it doesn't work, then you just go back to what you're doing before, and it's no big deal, because people are always going to need shoes. But with events, there's a little more at stake because you've only got 2 months to promote the event, and so if you miss out on something one week or you try something that doesn't work, there's real consequences to that. And yeah, so it's sort of like every event that concludes is like a project that you can finish. So I like that aspect of it too.
Yeah, and it seems like there are nuances with every single event. It's not always copy and paste, and you've got to be able to adjust on the fly, which is something that I think is really cool, because I kind of enjoy having to stay on my toes.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, every event's different based on the history of it, how long it's been around, the types of people that it attracts, the price of it, all these different factors. We start with sort of a main structure and some underlying principles for every event, but then we definitely tailor it specifically to the details of that event.
Yeah, yeah. So, in your opinion, what's hot right now? Are the ads working best on TikTok, on Facebook, on Google, Snapchat? Um, does it matter? How do you determine where to put your ad spend?
So it definitely matters which platform you're on. The great thing is that all these platforms have tracking capabilities that allow you to see exactly how many sales came from your advertisements, down to specifically which image and which piece of text and everything like that. You can see what that generated. And so that allows you to determine which platforms are the most efficient when it comes to event advertising. And we actually manage a program where we're always trying to discover the new channels and the new tactics that are working in the event space. And that program, it takes a small percentage of a budget that a lot of clients pay into. And we're focused on just testing new things, right? So like is Snapchat somewhere we need to be? Is TikTok somewhere we need to be? What types of videos are working best? Things like this. And then we can then share those learnings, and the idea is that we're trying to discover some real like breakthrough methods and breakthrough tactics. But what it also allows us to do is to make sure we're not missing out on anything. So through that, that's kind of a long-winded way of setting things up, that ultimately the four most profitable platforms we see are Facebook, Instagram, Google, and to some extent YouTube. But really, Facebook, Instagram, and Google are the big three. Uh, they're anywhere from 4 to 10 times more profitable than any of these other platforms out there.
And it's a very delicate process, really dialing in a digital advertisement. And I think it takes a ton of time, focus, and a lot of experience to truly know what you're doing. So, for events, it's really important that you either have someone in house that you're confident in, and most events do not have the manpower in their organization to run their digital ads in house and manage that. So working with an ad agency who really knows what they're doing is very important, and for so many different reasons. And one reason is obviously your event revenue. And Corey, how effective is digital advertising, when it comes to impacting your event's revenue?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly impactful. If you look at how it stacks up against more traditional marketing channels, so TV, print, radio, PR, things like this, the first advantage you have is that everything is incredibly trackable, right? Like I said, you can track it right down to the specific image that you put out there, the specific video you put out there, and see what that generated. So that's kind of step one. But then even if you took all these channels and you put them in their own vacuum, digital is the most efficient in terms of reaching people and in terms of converting people, right? So when I talk about reaching people, we talk about things like CPMs or cost per thousand impressions. And with digital, you can get easily below $6-7 per thousand impressions. Um, and just the quality of the touches you're getting there is so much better than what you're getting on some of these other channels, right? Like if you put, say, you put a billboard up, it's like for every 1,000 people that drive by that billboard, maybe like 10 of them were potential customers, right? Whereas with digital, you can really set things up to make sure that for every 1,000 people that see your ad, you know, 2 to 500 of them might be good potential customers, right? You can really like focus in that targeting, and it's never going to be 100% efficient, but it can be a lot more efficient. So not only are the costs at the same level or even better, but the quality of the impressions that you're getting is so much higher.
And I mean, when we look at digital advertising and we compare it to traditional advertising, that ability to really attribute your efforts and see the analytics and actually understand what's going on, it allows your ROI to greatly increase when you actually analyze that and understand it, because you continue to
Yeah.
improve. Once ads launch, by the time your event happens, you've really dialed it
Yeah,
in.
100%. And it really used to be that if you're promoting an event, the event manager goes to the marketing team and says, "Hey, I need you to put a plan together and execute it to make sure that people show up." And so you go and you put together like a TV, radio, print campaign. You got all these different channels working, and you put them out there, and then the event happens, people show up, it's a great success, and then the event manager goes back to the marketing team and says, "Hey, like that was a great event, like what was it, what worked, what was the lead for us?" And you go, "I don't know, like well, who knows, we could have been any one of these things." But then so then the next year you end up doing the same thing, even though maybe one or even two of those channels did nothing for you and you could have just got one of them. You don't know which one it was. But in this case, we can see, down to like the geography that we're marketing in, right? So if you look at, you're in Tennessee, so you look at Nashville, for example, and we see that we promote some event and and most of the sales are coming from the south, and we're really not getting anything to the north. I'm making stuff up, but like say that's the example. Then you can figure out either two things. You can figure out how do you get more people to come from the north, like what kind of messaging, what kind of uh, offers and tactics can you use to bring more of those people, or you can say, hey, let's double down where it's working, spend more money to the south side of Nashville, and get more customers that way. So there's really just like endless opportunities to continue to improve the performance and know exactly where your success is coming from.
Yeah. And, talking about the advantages, that's one big advantage of digital advertising versus traditional advertising. I think that traditional advertising came, a lot with a shotgun approach. It's like, well, let's be here and here. Let's do TV. Let's do radio. Let's do this
Yeah.
and this, and let's kind of pray and hope it works in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas digital advertising, there's so much more of a pinpoint approach to it, which really pays off. And, can you speak on any other advantages, I guess, with digital advertising versus traditional
Yeah.
advertising?
I mean, probably the biggest one is that it's where people are spending their time, right? And you want to be where people's eyeballs are. And so, things like TV is getting super messy because a lot of people aren't on cable, but then, doing like OTP or, in-stream advertising gets a little messy because it's, again, like which platform do you choose? It's so fragmented. But we know the platforms that people are spending the most time on their phone and on their computer. And so, that's the biggest one is we just want to be where most of the eyeballs are. And that's the reality of it. Obviously we spoke to some of the tracking and the cost effective aspects as well. And then I think maybe the last big benefit is that it's self improving in a way. So these algorithms are getting so good that they can really learn based on the exposure they're getting to different groups of people. The different videos and messaging that we're testing. We can set all these things up so that they're continuing to improve upon themselves and like learn what's working better. And then also year over year, you have all the learnings from the previous year that, you have learnings that you understand, but there's also like the algorithm has learned a whole bunch of things that we never get any exposure to, but they're in there. And then it's going to be able to learn off of, um, or to work off of those learnings and do typically an even better job the next time in.
Yeah. Yeah. And to really continue on this conversation, a specific question I've got is, most events that have been around for a while, they've had some really well established marketing channels that really work for them, whether it's email, TV, radio, PR. With digital advertising, how can digital advertising really work in conjunction with those channels? And is it incremental or is it cannibalistic?
Right. Yeah, I mean, sort of two thoughts there. The first one is when it's set up in the right way, it can be incredibly complementary and incremental. You think of like the marketing rule of seven, where someone needs to hear from you 7 times before they'll buy from you. Like just being on another channel and hearing that same messaging that you're putting out everywhere else, that helps you get to that like magical seven number. So in that way, it's complementary. It can be incremental in the way that you're reaching new people that might not be on some of these traditional channels that you're using, right? So typically like younger audiences or different demographics that you think, hey, like this group of people would be a great fit for my event, and I think they'd really enjoy it, but I don't really know if we're reaching them through our typical channels. You can then use different digital channels to reach out to that new group. So in that way, it's incremental for sure. And then sort of on the same token, like we've seen in the past where we've started working with an event promoter who used an assortment of traditional media channels. And at first we augmented what they did, but then we started to say, hey, like, is this old stuff you're using actually do anything for you? What if we took some of that budget and put it into digital? And now we do 100% digital for them. They don't do any other channels. their total marketing budget is half of what it used to be because we're so much more efficient with digital. Um, and yeah, so that's also like a case study where you can just streamline all of your marketing and get into those places where everyone's spending their time.
Yeah, and that's something that a 10 star we really like about you guys at Altitude Social Media is that you actually spend the time to have those conversations with clients and actually allow them to understand and kind of push them in the right direction of ways they can be more efficient with their ad
Mm.
spend, which is incredibly valuable. And it's definitely a value add to the client, whereas um, there are other marketing agencies that unfortunately will go and just do the job that they're kind of told to do. But having that ability and that desire to actually improve on what the event has in mind of doing, or maybe what they've been doing in the past, and improving on that performance is really
Yeah,
cool.
totally. No, I think that, as a marketing team, you need to be really dialed into what's happening on the sales front as well, right? Like, because ultimately, everyone's goal is for the event to be as successful as possible. So yeah, we'll look at things like, are your ticket prices in the right structure? Do you need to maybe add some like multi-packs? Do you need to add some add-ons? What are you doing in terms of like child and adult admissions and things like this? And figure out, based on some of the data that we're getting from our advertising, figure out, are there ways we can improve the structure of the ticketing? How is the event trending? Like, we'll put together forecast models for people and tell them what their event is pacing to do. Um, you know, all kinds of these things. And I think that just that's one of the advantages of the fact that we've done 500 something events, is that when a new event comes, we have all of these learnings from other events that we've done, and while they're often in completely different industries, every time we do one we learn something, and then we can bring that to another client.
And there are clients you'll work with who have events throughout the year, tons of events throughout the year. There are clients that you work with that have say an air show, for example, annually or every other
Yeah,
year. And regardless, I think the goal in mind for all of the events is we want to continue to improve on results. And obviously, one thing with email marketing, what we do is that list continues to grow when you ticket online. We have all those previous buyers, we have all those emails, and that's really important. And combining that with what you do, it's like a perfect concoction for a great success.
right.
You know what I
Totally.
mean?
Yeah, and you can even, right, you can even take some of those email lists and you upload them to these platforms and you say, hey, here's 10,000 people that have been to my show in the past 5 years. Go find me 100,000 more that are just like them. And you can use things like that to find new customers and then tap into them, right? And when you have that group of, like, you take the 10,000, you find 100,000 more, there's your 100,000, right? Going back to like the billboard model, like, we can reach out to all those people and have a really good chance that a lot of them are going to be interested, versus just putting something out to the world and hoping that the right people happen to drive by it, right?
Yeah, and that's a piece of really how marketing's really evolved over time. And you know in other ways too, how has marketing evolved over time, really in just like the last couple of years? And how should event marketers adapt to the changes?
Yeah, I mean, like with digital specifically, obviously, digital advertising in itself is a relatively new field, but over the past few years, there's been some like fundamental shifts in how things operate. So at first, everyone loved the fact that you could have these like super niche groups, right? You could, if you're running an air show, for example, you could find specifically like people that were interested in aviation, or people who had family members in the military, things like this, and you could go after those exact groups. But now it's sort of swung in the opposite direction, where now these algorithms, when you set them up in the right way, are so good at finding the right people that you're better to just set them up optimally to be able to go out to the masses and find those specific people, right? So instead of giving them like the exact sort of constraints of like I want to go after these people, you can do things like you take your email list and you send that out, and or you give it to the algorithm to learn off of, or you just test through content, right? You use different messaging, and then based on what's working with matching that messaging to different audience groups, these algorithms can use that to be more and more efficient. And then I think the other big shift is that the way people interact with content, and specifically the content they want to see, has changed a lot. So a lot of this was driven by TikTok, where people would film videos in their pajamas and it's unedited and it's just authentic and real, and it goes super mega viral. And that sort of started something across all channels where people want to see less edited, more relatable, more like genuine type of content. And so that's great news for event producers, because filming videos that don't require music or text overlay or any kind of editing is much easier and much cheaper than what we used to have with super polished commercials and big booming voiceovers and things like this. uh, and so there's like a real opportunity to capitalize on that. And I really think that every event needs to have someone who's like on the ground capturing behind the scenes day to day content. Um, you know, People want to be taken behind the curtain and they want to see how the show gets produced and they want to see the setup and all these types of things. Because if you can make yourself more relatable and more human, then people are gonna be attracted to you a lot more and want to be part of your community. So um, yeah, that's definitely a genuine sort of paradigm shift that's happened in the last couple of years.
It's amazing on TikTok, or really even Instagram. I'm on Instagram and my wife's on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok myself, just because of how time consuming it
Yeah,
has become. It's really easy to stay on the platform for a while. They do a really good job at that, and man, I mean, my Explorer page is nothing but everything I'm interested in. It's air shows, it's basketball, it's football, and it's just totally catered to me because it's really learned what I
yeah,
like. And I think that everybody can understand that. And you look at everybody's Explorer page, say 10 of us pulled up our phones on Instagram, pulled up our Explorer page. It's all going to look different,
yeah,
totally different. And it's very personalized. And to your point, digital advertising, when you're marketing for an air show, you're marketing for a fair, whatever event it is, the algorithm's going to know who to target. The results are incredible. It's if you're not currently running digital advertisements for your event, or you never have, start looking into it and weigh out your options. It's a space that you need to be in.
100%. And people, it's just there's so much more of an educational component, right, than there used to be, where it's just like sell, sell, sell. And now people want to be lured in by learning something or seeing something they've never seen before. And so, little simple videos that show cool parts of what event managers are doing that most people never see, right? Like the setup and the maintenance of equipment and or whatever it is, the travel, right, like traveling around to get ready for the show, all these types of things people find like really interesting, um, and a lot of event promoters have very unique jobs that not a lot of people know about, and the world wants to hear their story, and if they can use these channels to share that, then it can be really beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, and it's easy to say if you're an event promoter, like, nobody
Right.
cares. Nobody cares what I'm doing. But you would be
Yeah.
totally shocked at how many people are interested in what you do, and how many people are interested to get that behind the scenes, view of what you do. And even for pilots, video inside of the cockpit is really cool, and I see that a lot. Just because I'm not a
Yeah.
pilot, and I've never seen that point of view from an F
Yeah.
16. So that kind of stuff's really cool. Um, I probably will never, even if I have the opportunity to fly in a jet, I don't think I'd do it. I don't think I can man up and do it, to be honest with you. I think I'd get too sick. I think I'd
Yeah.
pass out. Um, but, last year at the Great Tennessee Air Show, Bobby Bones came and took a ride on a Blue Angel.
Mhm.
And that was one of the coolest marketing stunts for that air show. Him, that video on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook totally went viral in the area. A lot of people know who Bobby Bones is, and it was really cool that he got to experience that and show everyone, really in the Nashville area, like, hey, this is happening here in Middle Tennessee and Smyrna,
Mhm.
Tennessee, really close to Nashville. Um, Air shows don't happen all the time, and that's another reason why people want to go to the air shows, is because it's not like going to the movie theater and going to watch a movie. It's an air show. You get to see military demonstrations that you may not be able to see
Yeah.
ever again.
Yeah, and especially in today's like post-COVID world, everyone's still valuing experiences over everything else, right? And so there's huge appetite for events, and there's if you can get in front of the right people, you can really take your event to the next level. Because of that, right? People now value being able to get out and do things with their friends and experience the world and learn new things and make memories with people. And so, if you can make people know about you and show that you can deliver on a lot of those things, then you can be very successful.
Absolutely. Well, Corey, thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks for your time. It's been awesome having you on. Thanks for joining the 10 Star Happy Hour podcast. Make sure to go watch the video on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks,
Bye.
Brendan.